The One Piece story very much revolves around the Void Century, where this period seemingly holds all the answers to the world's greatest secrets. But now that we are in the final saga, the story has started giving hints to an even more mysterious era, which was the time before the Void Century. In the new One Piece chapter, King Harald begs the world government's forgiveness for all the crimes the Giants have committed in history. But the key detail here is that Harald says that he is apologizing for his people's past 1,000 years of sins. As the Void Century happened 800 to 900 years ago, Harald's words reveal that the Giants have actually been a menace to the world, even before the time of figures like Imu and Joy Boy. But I think this goes even deeper. What this arc has actually revealed is that the reason why Harald is so sorry for what his people have done and why he has such difficulty in changing Elbaf's worldwide reputation is because in the past, before the world government even existed, Elbaf was an enormous and powerful empire that tormented the entire world. This was something first mentioned by Shamrock at the beginning of the arc, where he revealed that Elbaf's warriors in the past managed to conquer the entire new world. Based on all the hints we've gotten in the story, I will try to uncover everything we know about this pre-Void Century era, about how Elbaf attained power that rivaled the world government, but also what eventually led to the Giants losing their empire. In the context of the story, conquering the New World is actually an incredible feat. The New World is repeatedly said to be by far the most dangerous part of this world, where even the world government and the emperors of the sea have in the present story managed to hold only small pieces of this region. If ancient Elbaf managed to conquer this entire sea, this heavily indicates that they were a power that far surpasses even the Yonko of today. I think how Elbaf managed to do what even the emperors could not is that hundreds of years in the past, Elbaf was a nation ruled by the ancient giants. In the present timeline, full-blooded ancient giants are extremely rare, but we've also seen that even normal giants who carry ancient giant blood hold incredible power. Harald himself was in fact so strong that he even managed to have an extended fight with someone as powerful as Rock's Epic. Meanwhile, Loki alone is described to have as much strength as the rest of Elbaf's warriors combined, and the Marines have even placed an emperor-level bounty on his head. If Harald and Loki alone are this strong, and their strength is mainly due to their ancient giant blood, Elbaf in the past was likely a nation possessing unimaginable military power, back when ancient giants still made up the majority of the population. It is also possible that these giants of old were absolutely enormous, even compared to ancient giants like Ors. Elbaf itself holds gigantic weapons that dwarf all current-day giants in size, yet Elbaf is not the only island in the story where we've seen something like this. I think we've actually seen possible signs of Elbaf's ancient conquest throughout the One Piece story. Several islands on the Grand Line hold what appear to be remains of absolutely enormous giants. We've for example seen gigantic skulls on both Wano and on a random island Baki was exploring in the pre-time skip. Just like on Elbaf, Onigashima also holds these enormous weapons and objects around it. These may all well be relics of ancient Elbaf, back when the country was the empire that ruled the New World. But this may also indicate that their territory went even further. However, I think the giants went even beyond just being mere conquerors. I think the reason why Elbaf has such a bad reputation worldwide even hundreds of years later is because the giants in the past were every bit as evil as the celestial dragons. Based on everything the story has revealed, ancient Elbaf was an absolute menace to the world. A lot of readers may overlook this, because most of the giants we meet in the story are actually very likable characters, but what the manga has made very clear is that Elbaf's culture before Harald's reforms was a culture of extreme brutality. When Loki introduces his homeland, he calls Elbaf a nation that in the past lived and breathed war, but this is not just Loki's opinion. We've throughout the series seen that several of Elbaf's giants believe it is their mission in life to destroy others. Even in this latest chapter, Harald has to put down a random giant who was brutalizing humans for no other reason than just because he could. Just like conquering empires from real-world history, this is likely a culture that developed very naturally. Because Elbaf was so successful in conquering other nations, Elbaf's giants likely started to believe that they were superior to everyone else, where it was the giants' right to attack and take from others. The manga has already revealed that Loki is hardly the only giant who dreams of being the Nika who is going to destroy the world instead of liberating it. Harald himself was also a complete terror when he was young, and based on what we've been told, He was actually the first king of Elbaf to break the cycle by trying to become a better person. All the giants in the story treat Harald's reforms as completely new ideas, which very much indicates that every king who came before him was a warmonger just like Harald himself was as a youth. This was however likely far worse before Harald's time, back when Elbaf ruled a huge chunk of the entire planet, which very much explains why Harald himself has such difficult time changing his country's worldwide image. If Elbaf before the Void Century was however this massive empire, why is the Elbaf of today back to holding just a single island, while the rest of the New World is under the control of several different factions? I actually think the story has already given a very clear answer to this question. The event that led to Elbaf losing its power is very likely that the giants fought on the side of Joy Boy during the Void Century. Some readers might overlook this, but the Void Century War wasn't just a war between the Ancient Kingdom and the 20 kings. What Vegapunk said was that Joy Boy too had his own faction, but we also already know that this faction included several nations, such as the Sandorians, the Samurai and the Fishmen. By the way, if you're enjoying this video so far, definitely click subscribe, since I'm not that far from hitting 10k subs, and my hope is that reaching that number will make Shueisha's copyright strikes a little less likely, since they mainly target smaller channels. There are also several hints in the story that Joy Boy was someone who was personally strongly connected to Elbaf. Not only was Joy Boy the user of the Nika fruit, which is a fruit based on Elbaf's sacred gods, but one of Joy Boy's companions even had the exact same Viking team as Elbaf's warriors. Joy Boy himself also seemingly had a huge body, which could well mean that he even personally carried giant blood. Yet, Joy Boy being allies with Elbaf hundreds of years ago could also connect to what Vegapunk said about the war that took place during the Void Century, where no side was perfectly in the right. While we know that Imu is evil, based on what I've gone over in this video, ancient Elbaf was also hardly a force for good. Joy Boy allying with them could funnily enough indicate that he indeed was very similar to Luffy in terms of personality. Throughout the One Piece story, Luffy has many times shown that he is willing to cooperate with some genuinely evil characters, or even with his former enemies. The Void Century War is said to have ended at Joy Boy's defeat, which may well have led to the collapse of Elbaf's own empire, with them possibly being on the losing side of this war. This would actually be similar to what a lot of the other peoples who were on Joy Boy's side went through, where just like Elbaf, many of these nations in the present story are said to be a shadow of their past selves. It is however possible that Elbaf was the most special of all of the nations that fought on Joy Boy's side. This is a pretty insane idea, but it could be that there is actually a greater reason behind all these connections between Elbaf and Joy Boy, where they could actually answer one of One Piece's biggest mysteries. For years, me and other One Piece fans have been confused by one scene in the story that happened literally decades ago, which was when the elders ordered Professor Clover to be shot right before he could say the name of the Ancient Kingdom. It really does not seem to make sense why the name of a country that has been completely wiped from history would be so important, since the name should have almost no relevance to the people who are alive today. But what if it actually did? What if the name of the Ancient Kingdom was a name the entire One Piece world knows very well? The interesting thing about the ancient Elbaf Empire is that it seemingly existed in the same era as the Ancient Kingdom. What if the reason why there are all these connections between Elbaf and Joy Boy is the same reason why the world government cannot allow anyone to know the Ancient Kingdom's real name, where this kingdom never actually disappeared, where the country's true name has always been Elbaf? This is a theory I've been thinking about for a few months now, but I've just never had the time to turn it into a full video, because it's honestly a surprisingly challenging topic to write about. If you're really desperate for me to make this video though, I'll definitely get to work on it if this video does something crazy like hit 2000 likes, but there's no way that will happen. Now, I have some major updates I need to share about this channel. I've decided to put the Navigating One Piece series on ice. I will attempt to focus more on just putting out one very solid theory based on the latest chapter every Sunday, if a new chapter is out. I'm hoping this will actually improve the level of my content, as it gives me more time to focus on just one topic about the chapter like in this video. If you still want to hear my thoughts about other stuff that happened in the latest chapter, I've started doing unscripted first impressions when the scanlations drop, and you can actually click here to watch the one I did about this chapter. Be warned though, it was my first time ever doing content without a script. Thank you to all my members for the support. I think One Piece is in for another dry spell in terms of views, since God Valley is now over, but I'll still hopefully be putting out a lot of content in the next several weeks, since ad revenue is at its highest before Christmas. I really appreciate everyone who watched this video to the end.